Yesterday chapter we also talked about chromatin versus chromosomes. Chromatin is the chromosomes before they're packaged, so it's loose, and the chromosomes then, coil it up. All right. When do we need to have it coiled up? For what part? Mitosis. Okay. All right. Ribosomes are made of what two things? RNA and protein. And that's where protein synthesis takes place. You need to know that. You can have free ribosomes and you can have ribosomes bound to the ER. What kind of proteins are going to be assembled by ribosomes bound to the ER?
The ones that are going out.
The ones that are going to be exported out of the cell. Technically, the protein is produced by a free ribosome and then the whole thing then migrates and binds to the ER though, right? Okay. The ribosomes that are making stuff that needs to be secreted outside of the cell, the ribosomes will travel to the ER and bind to the ER so that the protein will snake its way through into the
bound ribosomes are being secreted.
Right. Because they need to be with the endomembrane system, so they end up going from the ER to the Golgi to vesicles to merge with the plasma membrane. Free ribosomes that don't end up attaching to the ER are going to make proteins that are going to be used within the cell. Okay? Good? All right. You need to know for sure the parts of the endomembrane system. So what is and what is not part of the endomembrane system? Begin with your nuclear envelope. Then, if you work your way out, you have your ER. After that, you have Golgi. Then you have lysosomes. What do they contain? Hydrolytic enzymes to break stuff down. Vacuoles are for storage. And then you have your plasma membrane. Peroxisomes are not part of the ER. The mitochondria and the chloroplasts are not part of the ER. Ribosomes are not part of the ER. Okay? And then what connects from one thing to the next would be the vesicles. Got it? Okay, smooth ER does not have the ribosomes. Rough ER does. Here's a good picture. So stuff that's being transported, it's going to get processed in the ER, and then it'll bud off little vesicles to take it from the ER to the Golgi.
Oh, that's the little activity we did.
Yeah, that time we moved all the desks and you guys put like hats and coats and all that kind of stuff on. Remember that? That was us traveling through the endomembrane system.
Was it that had like the handkerchief with the
Oh my god, that was so funny.
Oh, that was
Was it Christian Smalley?
Yeah, that was the last.
Yeah, it had like boogers on it.
That was so great.
okay. Thanks. Smooth ER. You don't need to know all of the things that the ER does, but detoxifies poisons is a big one. So when you take medications, then they're going to get processed by the smooth ER. Or if you consume a lot of alcoholic beverages. So what part of your body, what organ is going to have a lot of smooth ER? The liver. Okay? Okay, rough ER. Like I said, it's going to process your protein, so it might add sugars or other proteins together to what was formed by the ribosomes, and then send them out via the transport vesicles to the Golgi. When we say it's a membrane factory for the cell, as it makes ER membrane, then pieces of it just will bud off and then go merge with other areas that need more membrane. So if you bud off a vesicle from the plasma membrane, it'll make the cell membrane smaller, right? But then it'll build back up as pieces from the ER join it. So it's always going back and forth, growing and shrinking, but it pretty much stays about the same. Okay, Golgi apparatus. You can recognize that on the picture. This is going to further modify what the ER has modified already a little bit. It's going to package stuff for transport. Got it? Those are the main things.
So by modifying it,
It might add other, like, other functional groups onto it. Well, it makes certain macromolecules, but you don't need to know the specifics of that. Macromolecules are proteins, lipids, carbohydrates, so they have to be assembled somewhere. So sometimes that's going to occur in the Golgi apparatus. You don't have to know every single thing about this stuff, though. Just know the main stuff. So, cis and trans. Cis is the receiving end, so that's coming from the ER. And then trans is the shipping side, so it's leaving on the trans side, and so that would go with either, the vesicle would take it to either a lysosome or a vacuole at that point. Got it? Yep. Lysosomes, we already talked about, has the hydrolytic enzymes. So when you receive these nutrients from the food that you eat, then your body, each of those cells, is going to need to build whatever it wants to out of it, so it has to break it down to get the raw materials to build what it needs. So the lysosomes have the enzymes to break that stuff down.
It's like a stomach.
Yeah, like a little stomach for the cell. Okay? We've learned about phagocytosis. I think we're good with that. Yeah? Here's a picture. You've got your food being engulfed. So, see, in this case, your plasma membrane is shrinking because you're taking this piece off of it that was stretched out, right? Remember when we did that activity where we all held hands and then, look, it was for the endomembrane system, but we engulfed, and so the ones on the outside had to make a circle around the other ones. So the circle kept getting, yeah, it was recent, but it's showing how your plasma membrane is going to shrink when you engulf things because part of the plasma membrane becomes the vesicle. And then it's going to merge with your lysosomes to get those digestive enzymes and break stuff down.
Are the vesicles? Do they make them?
It's just pinched off pieces of the other organelles in the endomembrane system.
Does the salt regrow what gets pushed out?
Well, it's like always giving and taking. So it might engulf something, and so then it got smaller, but then if it secretes something, then it would get bigger again. So it's going to balance out. Okay, so auto means what? Self. So, like when you're a baby, you have a tail in the womb. Well, you're not born with a tail, so your body has to digest it. Same with the webbing in between your fingers. So the cells digest that material right there. So that's autophagy because you're eating yourself. Cool? All right. Some types of organisms have other types of vacuoles, like the protozoa has a contractile vacuole because it lives in a hypotonic environment and water's going to be going into it, and it'll bust if water keeps going in. So it has a contractile vacuole to squeeze out excess water. No, Paramecium. We already talked about the function of the central vacuole in plants. Here's our endomembrane system, ER to Golgi, then Golgi could go straight to the plasma membrane or could go to lysosome or vacuole. Good with that? All right, mitochondria, we talked about in depth when we did the chapter on cell respiration. Chloroplast when we did photosynthesis. You do not have chloroplasts in bacteria, but the bacteria that can do photosynthesis, what do they have? They still have to have materials to perform photosynthesis, which is what? No, they don't have chloroplasts because chloroplasts have a membrane around them. So if you don't have a membrane-bound organelle for photosynthesis, they have chlorophyll. It's just loose, just like their DNA is loose in an area of the cell. Yeah, it would be. I think it would be. You could have the infoldings of the plasma membrane that try to compartmentalize, but you don't have organelles. Got it? Okay, peroxisomes are going to make peroxide and then break it down. So they're doing that in order to detox too. Okay. You need to know that mitochondria have their own DNA, they have their own ribosomes, and they have a double membrane. That's all evidence for the endosymbiotic theory that we talked about too, right?
And know what?
The foldings,
Evolution.
the endosymbiotic theory, the enfoldings are called cristae. The inside part is called the mitochondrial matrix. And then the area in between the outside membrane and the inside membrane is called the intermembrane space. Because inter means between. What's our time?
10,
Okay,
50.
go ahead and stop that.
How do you stop this?
Press the middle.